Welcome back to FYIdaho. My guest today is Tim Cox, who is the author of Revolution, A New Plan for Selecting Representatives. He is also the founder of GOOH, which stands for Get Out of Our House. And prior to the break, we were talking about accountability, Tim. And tell us how you're going to deal with the issue of accountability for these people who would be serving.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ask every person that answers this questionnaire to sign a legally binding contract that says however you answered, you will vote accordingly. We don't care how you answered, but whatever answers you've given, you have to vote that way when you're in office, and if you do not, you're legally obligated to resign within 24 hours. Now, if you get up there and you learn something new about some issue, right, say you said you were going to vote for the fair tax, and you get up there and you learn some reason why that's not the right answer, you can have your vote changed, but only with the approval of the members of your district. And what you do is you'd go to the website and you'd post, hey, here's the way I said I'd vote. I'd like to change my answer, and here's why. And if the GO members in your district give you approval, then you can change and vote against, or vice versa. We're tired, though, of having folks that'll tell us that, during the election process, I'm going to vote for term limits, and then they get up there and don't. Or they say, I'm not going to vote to raise taxes, and they get up there and they do. Right? We're going to hold you accountable however you've defined your platform once you get there. Now, some people ask, is that legally binding contract really going to hold? We think it is. We've talked to legal folks, and we think it's just like when you sign a document for a car or a home loan, it is legally binding. But we actually don't think we're ever going to have to enforce that, and here's why. If you get to office, and let's say you said you were going to vote for term limits, and it comes to vote, and then you vote against, we believe that the GO men and women who get selected, they're going to pull out the Constitution, and they're going to say, look, Article 1, Section 5, I think it's Clause 2, says that by a 2/3 vote, sitting members of the House can remove any other member. If you promise to vote for term limits in this example, and you don't, we'll take a House floor vote that says, hey, Elizabeth here just voted against the way she promised she would vote. All in favor of removing her, say aye. Right? We need to put honor and integrity back into the system, and in a matter of 30 seconds, we could vote you out. And I think that's the way we'll enforce these contracts. But the ultimate enforcement will come the next election. Once you go through this process and you serve your two-year term, you have to go back that next year and start right at the beginning in these pools of 10, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little while, right? And you're going to start from the ground floor. And if you got up there and voted consistently different to the way you said you would, they'll kick you out in the first pool, and you will not be reelected.
I think one of the things I like about this, too, if I hear you correctly, this is going to take out any media bias, because if when the media says so-and-so voted against, we were talking about a Freedom of Information Act, maybe the person who voted against that found out that if you voted for that, there were going to be 32 exceptions, and people would have actually less access to information than beforehand. They'll have an opportunity to explain that.
Yep.
So the media bias will come right out of it, because the person actually gets to explain why they voted against something that it sounded like they should have been for, or vice versa.
Yeah, and think about this. What we're going to do is you're going to answer this questionnaire based on your personal principles. Nobody's telling you how to answer. And when you get to office, you're going to vote based on who you are and your principles, because you don't owe any special interest group. You have no party telling you how to vote. You're not up there because you're interested in your political career. You're going to go up there, and you've been chosen based on who you are in these selection sessions, right, in these pools. And so the person that bubbles to the top, and we've seen this all across the country as we've run these, you saw this today, the people that bubble to the top are excellent. They're superb candidates, and they will get there, and they will hold to their principles, right? And that's what we want. We are a republic. Right? We're not a democracy. The only thing we do that's democratic is 51% of the people can vote who's going to win in the election, but everything else about our system goes back to principles, and that's what we're trying to do, is get back to our roots.
You know, you mentioned that we're a republic. You know that there are people that, fine people, that are getting involved in the process, getting politically active, getting active in their communities. I found that there are very fine people who are not even aware that the word democracy is nowhere in the Declaration of Independence. It's never mentioned in our Constitution, and don't know the difference between a republic and a democracy. So it seems like groups like yours are going to be very educational in helping people understand what's going on in our country today.
They absolutely will, and I think the problem's even bigger. I think many people in the media, right, don't even understand the distinction. And so they get up there and they talk about, you know, the democracy that we have.
Preserving our democracy.
Yeah, and it's like, no, go back, remember your schooling, and, you know, maybe say, well, the schooling has failed them, right? But I hope as we get more and more people, they get engaged with GO and start talking about this, right? And as the media starts to cover these things, they'll say, well, what are these guys talking about, right? And they'll go back and like, oh yeah, you know, they're making a point here. I think it was a Ben Franklin quote, right? They said, what kind of government do we have? Right, and he said we have a republic
Madam,
if we can keep it, right? And as long as we allow people to call us a democracy, right, for 10 or 20 or 30 years, then we start educating ourselves with, you know, with bad information. And so I think and I hope that the media is going to step up and take a little stronger ownership in this if they want to get the country back on track. Right? And they're not happy. I don't think anybody, even in the media, is happy with an $11.5 trillion deficit, right, or any of these other ills that we talked about earlier. They get it, right? But they need to put a little bit more thought into this, I think, and start being wiser about their choice of words.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the process a little bit. You were talking about the pools and how different people bubble up and it keeps going on. One of the questions that I had for you before we get into that is there anywhere during the process where when people are looking at this survey, they're given any idea that the distinction between a right and an entitlement, so that when they're looking at this, they can kind of see that? Because it seems like people get confused over that, and unless they understand that, once they understand that, it becomes easier for them to decide maybe what they're looking at.
Yeah, so my hope is every person in America between now and the end of the year is going to go through one of these selection sessions, like you participated, and I have yet to see somebody that goes through that process that doesn't step back and say, wow, this could really work. And once they do that, now they start thinking about the questions, right, just as you did, right? So this morning you see these questions and you really start thinking about them firsthand, and now I'm sure you'll go to the website and you'll start studying these in great detail, right? And you'll think that, and then as people start talking with their peers about it, right, they will get, oh wait, there's this meaning and there's underlying meaning, right?
And is there room on the, or is there a place, I don't know if you call it a chat, on your website where people can discuss this online?
Yes, so there is in our discussion forum, right, under the Discuss tab on this GOOH.com website, there's a forum on every single question.
Wow.
Right? And you can go in there and you can debate those questions with others. So there's a great debate going on with term limits.
That's
right?
great.
Should we have term limits and how
That's
many
great.
terms and what have you? And what we've done, right, is we've created this system and we've laid it out, and everything continues to evolve. Right? So I started with what I thought was needed to affect the change that was required, but as people discuss and debate in the forums, we continue to change the system, we continue to change the questions, and it will continue to evolve based on the input of our members.
Great. We'll be back in a minute.